Hello and welcome to another episode of Della's Voice. Tonight, I have the pleasure of once again, after a very long absence, of having my friend, Dr. Behrang Ajam, our mind engineering expert, on the show. We're going to discuss the topic of why do we need dads? Or what is the role of fathers in shaping the future of our kids and future generations? So it is my absolute pleasure to welcome on Della's Voice, Dr. Behrang Ajam. Hello, Behrang.
Hi, Della.
Hi.
Hi.
So
How's
nice
it
to have
going?
you here. Very nice. Very
Thank
nice
you for
to see
having
you
me.
again. You've
Thank you
been
for having me.
absent for a long time, my friend. I've missed you.
Thank you. Me too. I have in mind that every month at least we should have a program together, but it seems that this time it's been more than 1 month.
I think what happened was in May. Our show was in the beginning of May, so it's been like more than a month. So
Yes, yes.
let's not let that happen, okay?
Oh,
Because
sure, sure.
I love to
Yeah.
have you on Della's Voice, and I know that everybody loves to have you on here because you always
Thank
have
you so much. It's
so
my
so much
pleasure too.
good
Yes.
stuff to give us. Thank you so much. So, the topic of tonight: why do we need dads? Why? Why?
You see, I was in a grocery store today in the morning, sometime in the morning, and I was in the line to just go and pay for what I was in my cart, and just turned my head and I saw that there is a booth for um, postcards for Dad Father's Day. There was lots of them, but one was just caught my attention, and it was written, "Why do we need dad?" And I couldn't see the rest of it because it was behind other postcards. But the title was, I mean, there's a title. It's just on the postcard, and it's supposed to be funny and it's supposed to be humorous. But at the same time, it put me, besides the smile that it gave me, I was thinking to myself, really, why do we need that? And it took me to the past, to the whole uh, bunch of memories that I have with my father. And I was thinking how what he was, what he is, he's still alive and he's living in Tehran. Why, how he shaped what I am today by what he was, all his advice, all his guidance, his leadership. So what I am, a big part of it is by my dad. And when I was thinking about this question, why do we need that? Many things came to my mind. There are lots of things that we need dads for. Nowadays, especially in some cultures, dads are looked at just like an ATM. They go, work, come back, they have income, they pay for many things, if not everything. And that is the role that they have. And it seems that that's all. So nobody needs that more than just as someone who is there to pay everything, pay for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And once in a while, if there is a crisis, they are there to manage it and to resolve it. But besides that, more or less, we don't know why we need that. I
Isn't
know
that,
that in
isn't that interesting? That's so interesting because if as you're talking, I'm thinking back to my dad, and to be honest with you, I never really got a good chance to be with my dad. I was 13 when I last saw
Mhm.
him, but I think back, and it's like you said, my dad had a big influence on the way my life was shaped, good or bad. I mean, like just all these different effects and influences. So I wanna, as you're talking, I also wanna invite the audience to please leave us comments,
Mm.
share with us Why do you think we need dads? Like, what is if you are lucky enough to have your dad living with you? Give us some
Yeah.
comments about what it is they're giving you, or if you've if you've lost your dad, what do you remember?
Mm,
How did he shape your life? Basically, we would
yeah.
really appreciate your comments and interactions. So go on.
Yeah. You see, as you know, my work is working with people's minds to change it, to help them learn how to change the way they think so that they can change the way they live. We know that all that we are now is the manifestation of our all thoughts, basically dominant thoughts that we have now, and all of it has been shaped long time ago in our childhood when we didn't have much control on what comes into our minds, what is fed to our minds. And nowadays, when I work with adults, a lot of resistances, a lot of, the deeper layers of their subconscious mind, values, beliefs, identity, things that, it's very hard to realize that they are there, let alone change in them, comes from the childhood. And I was thinking how dads have the role to shape that. I believe at least two roles can be assigned to that. For me, it was two things that I could think about that they did to me, my dad. One of them was introducing me to new concepts that as a child I didn't have the opportunity. I wasn't even thinking about them. I have that example around, and I have appreciated my dad a couple of times on Instagram with pictures and everything. One thing that I cannot forget, I always remember, is that how he introduced personal computer to our house. I know that for the new generation, they just are born with everything like that. They just open their eyes and there is an iPad there and there's a laptop there and
They're
they
born
take it.
table ready,
Yeah,
Behrang.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
than
Yeah,
us, right? Yeah.
yeah. They take it for granted. And me and you, maybe, no, not you, you are much younger than me, but I come from a generation that, I come from a generation that, uh, you know, personal computer was introduced to us as something that was new. I remember that I worked with a PC that had Windows 3.1 on it. It was the computer mouse was introduced for the first time ever on that. And it was amazing because you didn't have to write on command line and stuff like that. So it was the beginning of a, something that I can say not only it shaped my life, because knowing how to work with a computer changed everything that I was dealing with forever. My computer literacy helps me do many things that, I see people who are in my generation but do not have that kind of literacy. They can't do that. There are lots of opportunities. There are so many doors that are open. And that's all because my father introduced personal computer in our house. And the funny thing is that he never learned how to work with it. He is not computer literate at all. What he realized that was that whatever this thing is, it is important that my kids know about it and be able to work with it.
That's
He
excellent.
is not computer literate, but
Mhm.
it is something that I can work with. My brother also is computer literate. So that is one thing, introducing new opportunities, new devices, let's say, new tools to children, to their lives. And that is very tangible. This is very something that you can see and it's very obvious. It is seen in every house. But there are things that, you cannot see. It's not readily seen. It's not observed easily, but it's still there. And it is the set of values and set of beliefs that shape our lives. It could
Mhm.
be for better or worse, and we know that. And why do we need that? We need that to put in our mind to feed our mind with beliefs and values that are constructive for our lives. One thing that I can remember is that, you see, for in some specific areas of my life, I was encouraged a lot. That's why I'll always, first time that now that I'm thinking about it, I remember things. The first time that I had a music instrument was that I was six years old, and with that, I was playing lots of songs that I have been introduced to, and I was listening. But the thing is that my dad and also my mom encouraged me to play in front of others at the age of 6. And now I know that that shaped the way I am thinking about interacting with an audience, be it 5 people to 5,000 people. It helped me not to be afraid of talking to a large audience at that time. These are things that are very small at the time. Even they didn't know that how this small thing that they don't even think about it can shape and can change the way I, as their kid, look at the world. But that is it. Small things that we do change the way our kids interact with the world. It is all about the vibration that we have, the interaction that we have with the world. And that is a big part of it is, I mean, basically 90% of it comes from parents, and that is one parent. So why we need that? Why do we need that? That's another thing. Now, I I'm just saying that as a list, and maybe we just go and elaborate on some of them. But one thing that is, mm, I can say I see it so much in my clients, but it is again one of those things that is not very much mentioned and focused on is both girls and boys learn how to deal with other men by the way they deal with their dad and the way their dad deals with them.
Mm-hmm.
Boys learn how to be a man by looking at their dad, how he deals with everything, how he deals with crisis, how strong he is, how uh, composed he is, how he manages things, and that gives boys a way to be a man. This is the man. This is the role model that you see in your life as a man. And this is what you will be, or you can be. Maybe you want to be. There might be things that you don't want to be in that. That's okay. But still, how to be a man, this is the way to do it. On the other side, girls learn how to deal with a man later in their life by the dealings that they have with their dad and the dealings that their dad have with them. I'm pretty sure you have that kind of experience that how the way you were interacting with your dad, and if you have a brother, on the second level, but dad is the most important person, the most important man in your lives. The, the most important man in everyone's life is their dad. So I'm pretty sure that he had such an impact on the way that you learn how to deal with men in your life later on.
That's
So
very interesting.
that is something that it is sometimes not talked much about,
Yes.
but the dad is the main role model that kids learn how to deal with the other men in the world from that dealings.
Perfect. Can we acknowledge some people that are watching? I see Mercedes. I see Farkhonde Pour Lotfi. Thank you so much for watching. And she actually has a couple of comments. And one says the father of the hero. The father, I guess, what she means is the father is the hero of life. So
Absolutely.
you're right. Like I think for a girl, her father is her hero, and I totally resonate with that. You mentioned something that was really interesting, and I think back at the way my dad used to live his life. He was very free spirited, and
Mm,
I remember that he was like he was fun,
Hmm.
when he was available to be fun. So I do remember those memories very fondly, and I feel like I have taken some of that free spirit and the adventurous.
Hmm.
So definitely that resonated with me. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's something we just don't think about. You're so right. So I'm so glad we're having this talk. Why do we need that? That
Yes.
and it's just right in time because it's Father's Day. And
Absolutely. Yes.
so maybe by hearing this talk, you can actually appreciate a little bit more of the father figure in your life. So I'm inviting everybody as you're stepping onto this podcast to please go to the chat box and just share with us your memory with your dad, or how your dad helped shape your personality, or what is it in particular that you've taken from your dad, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
go
it
ahead,
is.
please.
Yeah. This is the side of uh, the children. I would say. mm, I don't have children, so I'm not a dad. I can't always look at it from the side of children. I am always a child. So my dad is something like, I guess, over 70 years old, and the thing is that after all that ups and downs, now we are actually friends. I know that it is something that it seems to be obvious. Okay, everybody is friends with their dad, but when you talk with people and you go deeper, many people have that kind of badges or something. There is something between them, and I would like to invite everyone to reach out and try to change and solve whatever is in between. I know one thing. Let's still go ahead from the side of the kids, because then I would like to check everything from the side of the dad. Why do we need dad? Because now dad should have some say on it too, what
Yeah,
they are doing. That is important too. But from the side of children, sometimes things are going on unresolved, and they are trying to either uh, prove themselves to their dad or have his approval at some point. And it seems that sometimes they feel frustrated because they don't think that it is something that is possible, as if my dad will never approve me. Chances are you have never talked about things and you have never tried to resolve things. When you see, let me put it this way: we are always our uh, parents, uh, we have their genes. This is something that we have, and it is not something that can be changed. But at some point, we are not their children anymore. By not being children, I mean we are not child. We are not a child anymore. We are not children anymore. We can get adults. Being an adult is important in any kind of interaction. That's why I would uh, invite everyone to think about how I would interact with my dad if I just come out of the role of his child forever and be an adult to an adult. Can we be friends? Can I appreciate his presence in my life? Can I see him as a human being that has all the good intentions, although sometimes not the best outcome? That is possible. But the thing is that we cannot doubt that he had all the good intentions for us. Have in mind that whatever our dad give us is something that has been given to them generation after generation after generation. So it is something that is passed to the generations. And of course, they pass it to us too, and we pass it to our children. But I would like to invite everyone to look at it. How would I interact with my dad if I am not his child, his son, or his daughter? And we can just talk like adult people, like two equals. I believe that when you look at it and when we stop being a child, when we stop sometimes being a victim, and try to do that interaction adult to adult, everything changed. You can see a friend, someone who encourages, someone is there to support in your dad. But before that, and we are, as long as we are still in the role of the victim, that cannot happen because we are all, when you are a victim, I know in a victim role, we are all entitlement. I want, and
Sure.
he is there to give. You see,
Yes.
and that was the case when I was 1 year old. When I was 1 year old, when I was 2 years old, yes, he was there to give, and I was there to receive. That is the rule. There is nothing bad about it, and that there is nothing that can be changed in that time. But now I have grown 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, and sometimes, I don't know, 60 years later, when people interact with their parents and especially with their dad, they still go back to the role of a child and a victim, and they have that sense of entitlement again. I
Yes.
would like us to look at it as something that, can we just imagine that I am not a child anymore? I want to interact with this man as an adult. How that interaction would look like.
That's so good to think about. Um,
See?
it's so good. So 1 second, Behrang, Betty, Betty Bahrini just joined us, and I wanted to acknowledge that she's here, and Naveed Hassani is also here. Betty says, "Hi, um, I'm Batul Hastam, but I'm Batul, and she's thanking you, and she says
Thank
that
you.
she says my dad was so kind and honest. He was a kind and honest man. He showed his love to us. So
Mm,
that's nice that people
yeah.
can resonate with what we're talking about. Again, if you're just joining us, we are talking about the importance of having a dad role model in our lives and how they shape our future. I'm so I'm so interested in this concept of living in victimhood, Berang, because as adults, we can, it's like you said, we can be 60, 70 years old and we can still talk about what our dad did
Yes.
like 60
It
years ago.
happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It happens all the time.
we're not ready to that go. What is preventing us from letting that go and moving on?
Mm, in any case, when people are they are living in the role of victim, there is one good thing about being a victim, and that is that you don't feel any responsibility for your life.
Hmm.
It is as if someone else is in charge and someone else is to blame. Whatever I am, if I like it, perfect. It is me that I have done it. But if it is not what I like, then others have done that. And who's closest and who's best to blame than parents?
Yes.
Especially nowadays that we have all these psychology and psychologists and psychotherapists that are talking about what has happened to you in the childhood, and if you have been through this and that, that will have that kind of effect on your life. So who's to blame? My parents. What I am, whatever I am today, is made by my parents. I have no uh, clue how to deal with it, how to change it, and I didn't have any control over it. So being a victim, the good thing, it's not good. I'm looking from the side of the victim person, that I'm not in charge. I have no responsibility. I'm I'm the way I am, and I don't need to change it, and I cannot change it. They think that they cannot change it, and not assuming the responsibility of life is the main reason people do not change and do not live the way they want. When you go to uh, those techniques of mind engineering, when you go and take those layers from the people's mind, you see that a little deeper than what you see as an obvious, there is something that has a resistance. You get to the level of resistance. What is the resistance? The main resistance is that if I accept that my life is in my hands, then I have the responsibility of changing it. and I cannot blame anyone else. And some people want to be able to blame someone for what they are and what is not going on and going right in their lives.
Well, of course.
But some, once they assume that responsibility and see that how actually they have control over who they are, they have control over their being, that is the main level of, I mean, subconscious. When they see that level of control, then they enjoy asserting that control and acting on it and make that change.
Hmm.
That's why I invite everybody to take themselves out of the role of the victim, because that's so beautiful and so enjoyable when you realize that you have that control over your life, and you can change it and you can make that change. So that's why people don't want to, sometimes they don't want to get out of victimhood. And also, if I have been in that role for 40 years, for 50 years, for 60 years, another concept, the other way of looking at the world is not familiar to me. And as you know, and we have always talked about this, you know that familiar is safe and unfamiliar is unsafe, right? So that is something that actually we have to use those mind engineering techniques to make that concept of control and responsibility familiar to our subconscious so that it can assume it and act on it. Why people don't want to be adults, why they don't want to be responsible, once they don't, one is that they don't know what to do if they are responsible, and that is something that it can be learned. But I would say once you get that sense of responsibility, that sense of control, you will never lose it. You will never want to quit being in control.
Then perhaps this might be a very new subject to a lot of people, something they've never thought about before. I want to ask you a question, and that is, what is the danger in staying in victimhood for the rest of your life? What is the danger in that? But before you answer, I want to welcome Shadi, my friend Shadi, on the podcast. Thank you for watching, and Vahid Amin is also watching. Thank you, everybody, for watching and giving us your time. We're talking about why do we need dads? The
That
role the fathers play in shaping our lives. Okay, go ahead.
now, yeah, now that you know, there, I believe there are some dads in the audience. I would like to have their comments. You know, why do we need dads? Why do you think that your children need that? That is something that, you know, the dads in the audience can give us the best answer.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there are lots of things that we need dads for, but while we are talking, I would like to see some of the dads in the audience just write to us on the comments. Why do you think your children need dads? Is it just for providing material things for them, which is very important? You know, that is maybe one of the main roles of a dad for centuries, for millennia, for generations. But nowadays, as the civilization has changed, as you know, people's mind has changed, now we actually need more, and we want more from our dad. It is
Yes.
not enough to provide for us, which is the traditional role of a dad. Now, as you said, we want spirituality, we want encouragement. There was a time that everything about children's mind was the role of the mom, and the dad's role was just to provide food
Mm-hmm.
and shelter and a roof over their head. Now things have changed. Now we really need dads, and we need dads even more than before. There was a book that I was reading. I can't remember how many years ago, but it was about one thing, that why many boys never grow up and never get adults. They are not adults, even if they are 60 years old, 70 years old.
He,
And
you said that, not me.
yes, that was the subject of that book. But you know, when I see people and guys around me, and when I work with them, that is, you know, part of it is because if we want to be an adult, we have to assume that responsibility. But there wasn't a specific answer to that from that book, and I liked very much. And that was Generations ago, boys would go to uh, to hunting with their dad, to their job place. If there was, if the dad was a blacksmith, if he was a butcher, whatever he was, boys would go with them, and after a while they get skill and they look at them and learn how to be a man, how a man acts in the world, and they learn the manhood. Now, there is a part that is physiologic, and it's the body that gets, transforms from a child to an adult. That's right. But mentally, something has to change and something has to happen. And that would happen when boys would go to the workplace and go around the world with their dad and see how and learn from them how to deal with the world. Nowadays, dads go to offices and they kids never know what is going on in job in dad's workplace. I know that for a long time, whenever I asked where is dad at home, my mom would say he's in the office. And for me, office was a place, an unknown place, a foggy place that just some man, some adult men would be there, maybe sitting in there, maybe talking, but I didn't know what they do. I just knew that office is something mysterious, and I could never go to the office, and I could never see my dad at the workplace. And because they went to shopping and stuff together, my mom and dad, and in many occasions they wouldn't take us, me and my brother. So it took me a long time to find out how actually to deal with the world. And later on, there was opportunity for me to see my dad in action, in interaction with the world. But very in early childhood, it was always in office, and the office was the place he was, and I didn't know what. And I just remember that there is another statement. There was an office. He was that was his workplace, and in the office they would work with files. And the word file was also something that was very mysterious to me. I didn't know what is file and what do they do with files, but they are just working in the office with files. My point is that nowadays it is harder for boys to get men because they don't see their men, the men that are in their lives, their dad, in action and in interaction. It is important that dads spend more time and take their children, especially their boys, their sons, to different places, to uh, gatherings, to shopping, to doing things when they are repairing something, when they are uh, buying something, when they are talking to the salesperson, in every interaction, if you look at the child, if you look at your son, when you are doing that, he is looking at you like this and he is just absorbing. Everything you do is just being downloaded to them. They are learning. And have in mind, whatever you do will be translated in their future life. If you are angry, they will learn that, okay, it is okay to be angry. It is okay to be this way. It is okay to be that way. That way, the way you are is familiar to them and will be the safe way of living. You may say, how safe is it to be angry? But if they see that you are angry, they think that this is the safest
That's
way
the way to do it.
to live. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that is all they learn. And I have seen many times, I believe that you uh, have that kind of experience with people that you are dealing with, that even if the dad is not the most perfect person in lives, children look for someone like their dad as the man in their life. If it's
It's
with
true.
girls, they usually look for someone like their dad as a husband or a partner.
Yes.
And they raise their sons and they raise their children just the way their dad was.
Yes.
And there are in many occasions that boys are looking for someone to be as their dad later on in life. And the way that they interact with the world is the way that their dad has been interacting.
Hmm.
That is important. Maybe you as someone as a man, maybe we want to behave the way we like. But once we had a child, that child is learning from us every minute, every second, and it shapes all their life uh, for the future. One other thing that we need dads for is to give us encouragement. That is something that sometimes dads fail to give. Sometimes dads tend to see the worst in their children rather than their best. And it is unbelievable how it can crush the soul of a child when they see that their dad, who is the most important man in their life, is just looking and focusing on a flaw, something that is not very good, and forgetting everything about the good things that they have. They don't have any words to talk about it. They just know that there is something not very good going on in here. And when encouragement is not there, there is no self esteem. One thing, now that we have said that, I would like to say, during all the years that I have been working with people as my clients, there is one thing that I always say, that if you can give this one thing to your children, all the rest will be fine. And that is self esteem, self
Mm-hmm.
worth.
Mm-hmm.
Once someone believes in themselves, and they have they know their own value, and they have worth, they feel worthy, everything else will be in shape and in place. And the only the only persons that can give that to children are parents. And the dad, which is the most important man in the life, has that important role to give that self-esteem, to
That's so good.
that self-worth.
That just reminded me of something. I think I heard this from a friend who said uh, when she would go home with her report card, and she got maybe like or no, maybe she did a test or an exam and she got 98 out of 100 correct. Her dad would say, "Well, what happened to the other two? So why didn't you?" And it's so true what you say. um how is that? Why does that happen? What is it? Like you're a guy, you could potentially be a dad. Why is it that dads are looking for perfection, or they're looking, is that their way of making their kids stronger, better? What why is that? Because I think back at my dad, and he was the same way.
Yeah. You see, it is, as I said, dads, moms do and give to their children what they have received from their parents. It
Mhm.
goes generation by generation. So that is the way that they have learned to, as you said, make the kids strong. If I focus on the 98, my kid will think that that is okay to be 98. I will focus on the two, which is missing, so that he learns to go for the rest of it. And
Mhm.
what happens is that some children learn that you are never perfect and
You're
you are
never
never good enough.
you're never enough, right?
You're never enough.
Yeah,
That is what happens.
that's
Yes, I know that there is all sorts of good intentions behind looking for flaws and try to repair it and make it good. But that gives the impression, that gives that effect on children, that you are never enough, you are not enough, and whatever you do, you are always 2 points short.
yeah, that's
And that is something that will shape their future.
mhm,
I see that people are struggling. I have a friend who is, as he describes himself as a workaholic. And when we talk about this and we just analyze what he is doing and the way he is interacting with work and with family, it turns out that he is still proving himself to his dad. In his mind, the dad is not there anymore. His dad passed away a few years ago. but in his mind, he is still trying to prove. And what happens is that he is never happy. He is never fulfilled. He never feels the fulfillment, and he doesn't have that kind of encouragement and uh, approval for the children. So the children will be like him, generation after generation. A generation, let's say, many generations of people who are not fulfilled and are not living happy. We are talking about being happy all the time,
Yeah.
happiness, fulfillment, joy, and how we can act in the world and how we can give to the world. But how can I give to the world when I think that I don't have anything?
Mhm.
I'm always short of things. I am always 2 points short. I'm not enough. How can I give to the world when I'm not enough and I don't have enough in my head?
Yeah, it's almost impossible. I'm just going to
Yeah.
interrupt you for 1 second and say
Sure.
hi to Donna and Edna and Keel. Thank you so much for joining us as we're talking about the importance of our dads in our lives. And Betty says this is a very interesting topic for her. So she can resonate with this. So go on, please keep going because this is highly interesting. I so agree with you that um, we go back to this topic of, and I've heard it so many times. I have daddy issues. Have you heard that before?
Exactly.
I have daddy issues.
Daddy issues. Yeah. Yeah. There's a now it has been so much discussed that it has a name now. There's a name for it. I have a daddy issue. And when you see that daddy issue is so common, you see that how important the role of a dad is in life. The dad is the giant, is the uh, I don't know what to call it.
He's
The
our
should I
rock.
say
He's our
he's
hero,
he's
right?
the hero,
He's
exactly. He's the
He's
hero
God to in
in
our life.
everybody's life. He's the Superman. He
Yes,
is the strongest, the most knowledgeable, the wisest person in a kid's life. If
yes,
dads start to look at themselves like this, I believe they will know why children need that. Every child needs a hero. Every child needs a wise man, someone to talk to and someone to learn from. It is important to be open to that conversation because sometimes dads are not open to it. They have their own shield. I know that in order to be a parent, you need to be an adult and then parent. But that doesn't happen all the time. I have to admit, sometimes we are parents without being adults. But once we have a child, it is necessary, it is important to think about going deep, see what is going on in there, and whatever is there, whatever unpleasant things that we find in there, put them away. There are ways for it. There are ways for it to put them away. And from now on, I am going to be an adult because I'm a parent now. A child parent is not working because when a parent has all those kinds of issues, they just transfer all the issues to the children. There are ways to live as an adult. And that is the way a parent should be. And that is the way a dad should be. And if we see that role that we have and the impact that we will have on our children's lives and future, then we will find out that it is important to be a real dad, that hero, that wise man, that the most knowledgeable man in the world, that is open to conversation, open to encouragement, open to approval, open to that interaction, open to hug, open to give attention. You see, there are lots of things that we need dads for, but sometimes we fail to realize how important and how big that role is.
hmm hmm
See, mm, I don't have, I don't know how to picture that, uh, the vastness and immense effect that a dad can have there on the children, especially on boys, because besides everything else, one thing that boys learn from their dad is how to be a man. And once they are a man, they are prepared to be a parent. Without that Being a man, there is no parent. And that's why issues are passed generation to generation, because in many, many cases, people are parents without being adults. That's why I want us to think about how adult we are, how we are interacting with the world as an adult. Are we adults? And if we are not, or we think that it could be different, think about it and act upon it. Now, one more thing before I guess we are running out of time gradually. Of course, we have been talking for 45 minutes in stretch. Uh, See, the thing is that being an adult means that I want to interact with the world not from the uh, from the uh, viewpoint of a child, but as an adult, but as someone who has that kind of responsibility and has the power to interact in the world. Being an adult means learning how to negotiate. Being an adult means learning how to talk, how to listen to children, how to listen to uh, our spouse. Because, as I said, all children are learning is from not only the direct interaction with them, but also the interactions of parents together. They look at how they talk, the way they do it, and the way the outcome is uh, achieved. And they learn that this is the way to live. This is the way that I should talk to my spouse later on. This is the way that I should interact with someone else. And as I said, if it is anger, they will learn anger. If it is listening, they will learn that. Whatever you want your child be yourself, because they learn from your actions rather than your saying. I know parents that when they want to teach their children to be familiar and friends with books. I remember that was actually a mom who, when she wanted to think about something just like this, she would put a book in front of her, open it. She wasn't reading it. Just by watching the parent having a book in front of her, children would think and learn that it is a good idea to read.
Mhm.
That is a way to uh, put make reading and make books interesting to children. I have been often asked, how can I make my children familiar with books? And I always ask, when was the last time you read a book?
Are you familiar with books?
Absolutely. So if you are not reading, how do you expect your child to read?
Yes.
If you are not learning, how do you expect? Yes, sometimes we think that learning is about technical stuff. Everything that we learn in the university is technical. We learn techniques to deal with computers, to make that different things. Whatever we learn in the university is about techniques, and it makes the university role in the world so far, at least for normal students, has been to uh, develop technicians, but it is not enough for real life. It is not enough to learn and know how to to develop a website. It is not enough for life. Children need more than that, and the only person who can give that to them are the parents. At least the main people who can do that. So
Hmm.
whatever you want children to learn, whatever you want them to be, you have to be yourself. That is why being a parent is so big, so important, and a big and huge responsibility. You have to be what you want your children to be.
I
It is
love.
not enough to say,
I
you
love.
have to be, you have
Mhm.
to experience that being. That's why you have to be an adult to realize that I need to learn myself. If I'm a dad, I have to learn myself. Maybe I have gone through my life without learning how to listen. Now I need to learn listening, active listening. Now I need to express my love. I have gone through my life, and my dad never taught me. I am just saying, right? It is not a good excuse. not to be better than your dad.
Yeah. If it didn't
See,
work
we have
for you, then why would you think is going to work for your kids?
exactly, and
Change
it
it.
is be it will go generation by generation.
Yes.
So yes, my dad was tough. My dad never showed his love. All right, so what? That's why I don't know. All right, so what? You have to learn.
Excuse, and I'm
You have to,
sticking to it.
yeah, you have to practice it.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to learn. Yes, you need to practice. It takes time. It takes effort. No problem. There are techniques for it. That's a skill. You may not have it, but it is a skill that you can learn. And without learning that skill, nothing will change. We always say, I want my children have a better life than me. So how are they supposed to do that? If all they have is from you and you are not upgrading your being so that you can upgrade their being, how is it supposed to happen? It never happens. I'll go back to the topic. Why do we need that for everything? We need them for everything. They are important. They are huge. They are big. They are hero. They are wise, and they are adults. If they are adults,
Excuse me, Behrang. I'm just going to put you on camera. I'll be right back. Just keep
sure.
talking.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Now, now that Della is not in here, and it is something like not an interview anymore. It is just me. I would like to share with you what I have been through. This is my own experience. For many years, I was in some kind of conflict with my dad about some things that when I look at them and think about them, they were very trivial now. But at that time, it was very important. It was most the biggest issue in my life. But it happened that I learned how to be an adult myself. And then it happened that now I could see my dad as another adult. Now it wasn't me as a child and my dad as a parent, and I wasn't that 4 year old kid that was all demand and he was expected to be all giving. Now we are equal. And that transformed everything. My relationship with my parents, especially with my dad, was transformed. We are now friends. We talk, we exchange encouragement, we exchange ideas, things that you can not even think about. This is the role that actually what I can say that my dad was doing it actively. It is what I did. I wanted to change. So if you are someone who has some kind of issues with your dad, have in mind they may have been living with their own way of life for 60, 70, 80 years. That is harder for them to change. But now you are learning and you are in a place to know what is going on. Decide to be an adult. I know that it sounds very funny. We have to decide to be an adult. We have to decide to put away that victimhood that we have been uh, dealing with and we had been living with for many years. It is natural for a child to be a child. It is not very good for a 40-year guy to be a child. See, it is something that has to change. And that change comes from within, that change comes from what we learn. And once that change happens, you will see that all the interactions that you have in your family in the last minutes of this fly video. Please let us get adults. So what's going on with you, Della? Are you
So,
everything fine?
no, everything's great. As you were talking, my dog was here with me and he was getting really hot. So I needed to let him out of the room. That's why I
Oh,
put,
I see.
I was still right here. I was waiting for you to breathe so I can get back on camera.
Yeah.
Wow. So this has been a great topic, and I know that a lot of people can resonate with this, and you
Right.
offered us a lot of tools and strategies of getting out of that victimhood is such an important part of this the situation, right? To
Yeah.
start living, becoming adults, and
Becoming a grow up. You know,
grow up.
sometimes
Grow up.
yeah, sometimes they say man up, grow up,
Yes,
and that is the essence of it. Yeah. You know, as
that's
children,
so big.
we cannot be parent and children. We cannot be a good. You know, everybody can be a parent, but to be a good parent needs to be an adult, needs to be a, to grow up and be open to learning, to listening, be open to change. If I want to have that, to see that change and that transformation in my uh, family, I have to be open to the change. How can I be closed and expect something to change? As long as I am closed, nothing changes. Change starts from me.
Yes.
I was, you know, I love this topic. I mean, the statement, why do we need that? So much
Yeah.
that I just want to go back to it. Just think about it. Why did you need your dad? What was his role in your life? I assure you that you have the same role in your children's life.
Mm-hmm.
If there were, you know, whatever they did, chances are you are doing the same thing to them, first of all. And if you want it to be changed, you have to change. Children are just there to learn and just to absorb. They are not in the position yet to change. Yes, later on, if you have a kid who's 4 year old, all he or she is just learning. Yes, when he is 40 years old, then he may think about changing. But for now, your 4 year old kid is just absorbing.
Okay.
Think about, as a dad, what you are putting in their head, in their minds.
Amazing, amazing. I wanna thank Christy also who joined us, and all the people who watched us tonight. I know that you gave everybody a lot to think about, Behrang, and perhaps we can pick this up another time. But
Sure.
for tonight, our time is up. So thank you again for your knowledge and sharing. What you did with us tonight. I thank you very, very much.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure being in your show.
Thank you. And for
Thank
everyone
you.
who tuned in tonight, I hope that you will join us again at a future date on another podcast. But I hope that you took some gems tonight. Take what you need and leave the rest.
Yeah,
And see what you can apply to impact your life in a positive way, because ultimately that's what we want. And so, with
absolutely.
that, I want to wish everyone a good night. Stay safe, be well. This is Della, hoping to spark your soul. Thanks again, Behrang. Have a
Thank you.
good night.
Good night. Have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.